Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. Today is Thursday, March. I'm trying to rewind time here. May the 4th. So, in honor of my Star Wars geek daughter, may the 4th be with you all. So, we actually just finished up a super fun dinner that we did where it was um, like scoops were scooper troopers and all that kind of stuff that Pinterest is so great at teaching all of us moms for last minute fun things so that we can feel like we're awesome parents when we're really just on the struggle bus on the daily basis. But I appreciate all of you guys tuning in. I am super excited for our live today because I have a special guest coming on, Kristina Smallhorn. So we were going to have her on last week. As you guys remember, I was having major technical difficulties. I don't know if it was the computer or I'm thinking it was the app that I use to stream this. And this week, it looks like we're doing really well. I'm actually going to go over some of the stuff that I went over last week, but I wasn't able to really show you guys everything. And I want you to be able to see what I'm referencing. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about numbers just in our local specific area. And then I wanted to share an article with you guys that's about Swanee and one of the things that we just got rated here in Swanee. So that's super exciting. And then Kristina is going to join us a little bit later in the live. And we're going to just be talking about the market in general because it's one of those things where I'm hearing a lot of different conversations going on. I'm hearing a lot of people that are really concerned. They're feeling like they're watching 2006, 7, 8 play out. Some people are more concerned about the interest rates and what in the world is going on, because if you've been keeping up with it at all the past couple of weeks, we've actually been on a downturn trajectory, but it has been said that we're about to see a spike back up. So a lot of people are just really frustrated because when you're trying to buy a property, obviously you kind of need to budget. That's how you make sure that you're within your means. And if you don't know the interest rate from day to day, that obviously is affecting your affordability, which makes it very difficult when you're looking for a house to know what price point am I actually sticking to. So without further ado, you guys know the drill. Tell me where you're joining from. I would love to hear from everybody. I really appreciate every time that you guys tune in, all of your questions and your thoughts. Really just help keep this going and keep it alive. The only reason I do this every week is to make sure that you guys are getting live information every single week, that you're able to ask questions, because I feel like a lot of what you hear in the media could be true, could not be true. I'm not going to say. And then also it's always national news. And so it's really nice to see and hear when it's to our local specific market. So tell me where you're joining from. Drop a comment. If you have questions, definitely drop those in. I want to make sure that we are getting to all of those. If I don't answer them right away, I definitely see them and I'm going to make sure that we have those, especially when we get Kristina on. It's just going to be some kind of back and forth conversation about two real estate agents in two totally different separate markets, what we're seeing, and just total honesty, no sugarcoating. That's what I love about her more than anything is there's no sugar in her coding, like at all. And I appreciate that when it comes to the real estate market, because we are dealing with probably the biggest investment you'll ever make. It probably definitely is the biggest one that you've made to date. And so you really need to know what's going on in the market. So let's see, Betty Ayers, howdy from Dawsonville. Hey, Betty, it's good to see you. Pendergrass from Jackson County. Love it. Pendergrass is growing, y'all. Y'all better be on the lookout. Hello. All right, look at everybody. Loving it. Board designer, hello from Swanee. Love it. Okay. So I wanted to just jump on here and I'm going to share my screen with you guys because look at that. Holy crap. It's actually working this time. Praise Jesus. Okay. So what you are seeing here is when I log into the local MLS, this is what we what we see. And so if I go here and I look at, let's say that we kind of narrow this down, we're going to do Gwinnett County. Because if I put in all of Georgia, you guys have to understand that if I put in all of Georgia, that really completely pulls in information, because Gwinnett County to Atlanta to South, Valdosta, somewhere like that, very different markets. And so if I'm pulling all of that information together, you're not getting an accurate depiction. Again, you might as well be looking at national again, right? Because something in Valdosta compared to something in Alpharetta is drastically different as far as price points, as far as how quickly something is going to sell. So we want to make sure that we're looking at very specific information. And that's why if you're like, I don't live in Gwinnett County, that's not specific to me, I live in Hall County or I live in Forsyth County, drop it in the chat. I'm more than happy to pull that up. So looking at Gwinnett County right now, if you look here, we're looking at the median sales price. And so you see that for the last couple of years, we had this steady trajectory up, right? And then we kind of peaked, and then it kind of went down and bounced, and then down and then bounced. Now we've done this level out, which is exactly, honest to God, what we want to see. So we had this bounce back because this was kind of the November, December timeframe. And in January, we started to bounce back up as far as the median sales price. And so now we've kind of, tapered out, we've leveled out. But then if we look at new listings, good Lord have mercy, look at that all over the place. So they dropped drastically. And that's what probably the biggest problem has been. And I've told you guys this over and over. The reason we are not seeing a substantial decline in pricing is because of the lack of inventory. Oh, Kim Robertson joined us from Sugar Hill. Hi, Kim. Good to see you. So when we don't have enough houses on the market to sell, then that's when we have an issue of, inventory. Lack of inventory makes house prices stay higher because we are still in a very strong seller's market because of the fact if 5 people need a home and I go to sell my home and it's the only one for sale in the area, of course my house is going to sell. There's 5 people that are fighting over it. But if there were 5 people looking for a home and there were 10 houses for sale, well, now each person has 2 houses that they could have. Now they have options. Right now, people don't have options. Right now, it's still 5 buyers trying to get the same house because we saw this complete decline right here in inventory. So what do we do with that? That's one of the things that we've been talking about over and over. It has come up a little bit, as you can see here, but then God bless, right as our spring market is coming, it dips back off. So in Georgia, our spring market is one of our busiest times. That is usually when our spring market starts to come, because summertime is our absolute busiest time. June and July, it's like a free-for-all here. So March, April, May, kind of leading up to that, you're starting to see homes coming on the market. You're starting to see more people buying because people want to buy during the summer. So that way they can get kids acclimated, they can get to their jobs, everything gets settled. And then bam, August, kids go back to school, everybody's good. But we dipped off again. And so what you're seeing right now is multiple offers again because of this right here. So a lot of people are really frustrated because they're like, I just want to get into a house. I thought we were over the last couple of years. I don't want to deal with this drama anymore. What do we do? And unfortunately, like I've told you guys before, we're in this vicious cycle because let's say that I want to sell my house and I know that it would sell because there's buyers out there that want to purchase my home. But now on the flip side of me selling my home, what happens? I've become the buyer. Well, now I'm the same as that buyer that's wanting to buy my house. I'm trying to buy something and there's nothing for me to buy. So now I'm just like, well, I'll just sit tight then. I'm just going to stay here. So now I've taken my house off the market. So that in that one house that was going to go on as inventory is no longer going to happen. And we're seeing so many sellers do that. They're saying, well, I can't find anything, so I'm just not going to sell. Well, then these buyers over here are like, but I was going to buy your house. Well, I'm not going to sell it anymore. So we're having this vicious cycle going over and over and over. So if you look at homes for sale right here, This is, again, going all over the place. So in October, we were at 2,500 houses. Now we've come down to 1,400 houses, homes for sale that's actively on the market in Gwinnett County. So here's the tricky thing though. We've got 1,400 houses for sale. We've got 800 of those that are pending. So how many of those are closed? 773. So that's how many closed in April. We're lucky. They just updated this so that we could see April. Last time we were looking at March. So there were 773 closings just in Gwinnett County in the month of April. So let's take a look at our days on market. Ooh, that big decline. So we had kind of had this dip, right? They say it was 5 days on market. It really wasn't during this time. It was like 0 days on market. It's showing 5 because that's basically the lowest that the graph shows. But realistically, during this time in 2021, it was like 0 days on market. The very first day that it went live, it was sold. And so then we had this trajectory go up, and we got all the way up to 33 days, which, keep in mind, you guys, 33 days on the market is actually pretty normal time frame. If we were looking at a balanced market, we would be looking at about 30 to 31 days. So if we had a balanced real estate market, we would be looking at around that 30-day mark. But now we've steadily come down, and now we're back down to 13 days on market. And I would venture to say, I really would put a bet that it's lower than that in a lot of areas, because I can say that a lot of the homes that I've been working with, even on my listings, we've had multiple offers and we've gone under contract. I have a very specific kind of listing strategy. I always like to list on a Thursday, just for the simple fact, a lot of people go to look at houses over the weekend. And so when we list on a Thursday, we usually have taken pictures before. We've done, YouTube videos. We've done Instagram reels, all of the stuff, and sent out postcards and door knocked because we're going to have an open house this weekend. We've done all of the things. So on Thursday, your house goes live. So all of us realtors are jumping in and seeing what's new that's come on the market on Thursday and Friday, because we're taking our clients out this weekend and we want to see what haven't we seen? What can we take our clients to see this weekend that they haven't seen, or that hasn't been on the market for a couple of days? And so that's why I always list on a Thursday. Usually, and I will say for the last 3 listings that I've listed this month, we went live on Thursday. We left it open through the weekend because I like to give everybody a fair chance to be able to get in to see it. Not everybody can jump out and be able to see the house within 24 hours. People have jobs. So I will leave it open through the weekend. And I just tell people, we're looking at contracts as they come in, but we're not going to really, accept anything until Sunday evening. That way it gives people a chance to get in there. And then I sit with my client. We go over all of the numbers on Sunday evening. But usually by that time, we've got offers. And with these last couple, we had about 5 to 6 offers on each property. And we looked at, what was going to be best for them. And we ended up going under contract. So it appears that it's really, it took 4 days to go under contract, but we were having showings and we were having offers those first days. We just like to give them, equal opportunity, if you will. So the days on market here are really important. It's just plummeted here. So that being said, a lot of people ask me, what about month supply? So let's take a look here at our month supply, because again, let me remind you guys, some popular areas are gone in 3 days or less. That is absolutely true. Absolutely true. I'm glad that you mentioned that. So if we're looking here, your month supply is kind of what tells you if we're in a buyer's market, if we're in a seller's market, or if we're kind of somewhere in between. We usually are not on that in between where it's what we consider a balanced market for very long. Usually we're in a balanced market for a very short time as the pendulum is swinging from one side to the other. So if we're in a buyer's market and we see things shifting and it's shifting over to a seller's market, or if it's a seller's market and we're seeing things swing to the other side of being a buyer's market, there's usually like a 5 to 6 month period where it's a balanced market where everybody, there's enough inventory, there's about the same amount of buyers make an offer, sellers are willing to negotiate a little bit, and everything just kind of plays itself out. That's when it feels like a happy little time. Unfortunately, we don't get to live in Little House on the Prairie very long because it usually swings back to one side or the other. And so how that is dictated is if we're looking at like 4 months or less of inventory, then you're in a seller's market. There are more buyers than there are homes available. So there's like 5 buyers to every 1 house. Now, when you swing that and it's a buyer's market, there's 5 homes to every 1 buyer. So now the buyers have kind of their big thing and they can go and they can look and they can choose and say, I'm sorry, Mr. Seller, like, I don't want your house. If you want to bring it down, sure, be my guest. But other than that, I don't want your house. So that's kind of where we are. You guys, look who I've got. I've got the magic. I love it.
Where are we at? What are we talking about?
We were just talking kind of about like all of the information on our market, like right here in Georgia, just kind of talking about days on market, multiple offers. What are you seeing in your market, Kristina?
Well, I cover the whole United States when I'm talking about the market. And so it doesn't matter, like I know the headlines all say housing crash, housing crash, housing crash.
Yep.
There's 2 things I know for sure. If you are in the median priced home or under, you are still in a bidding war situation. And it doesn't matter if you're in a market that's supposedly crashing, you're still fighting for those most affordable homes in your area. And I just read an article that says 93% of the top housing markets are still increasing in price.
Yep.
So it doesn't like this, all this nonsense, like it's all falling apart, it's crashing. Not right now, Nate. Right. And I just heard from a lender too, that we're going to be seeing interest rates because the Fed just upped it again. Jerome Powell just upped the interest rate. So that is the opposite effect that it has on mortgage rates. So that he's saying that we're going to be seeing it just trickling under 6%. So it's probably like going to be 5.99.
That would be lovely. But I know,
but that's going to cause a problem.
That's the thing. Like, how are we supposed to get back to this balance? Because a couple months ago, it dipped down, I feel like, for a day. But then it went right back up. And all it did was create this flood of buyers that were like, I want to take advantage of that when we already don't have enough homes on the market. So what do you think that's going to do?
We have an affordability crisis here in the United States it began at the beginning of the last housing crash. So in 2007, home builders were building houses like popcorn. We had a ridiculous supply of homes because they kept telling everybody it's not going to end, So these builders were counting on the fact that they were going to sell, and everything was selling quick. So sure enough, the house of cards fell.
Right.
And home builders from that point forward said, I'm never going to build in excess ever again in my life. Never, ever, ever. So then after that, we've had a decrease of built homes. We keep building less and less homes.
Right.
So all that does is constrain the supply of housing.
Right. They never started building the spec houses again.
Right. And then not only that, the houses that builders were building, they weren't building the 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom homes, those little, not anything under 1,500 square feet, because that isn't going to make them enough money. The spread isn't there. So they're building those, 2,000 and up, and that made those homes more expensive. When they used to be the medium price home, now they're in the upper echelons of people's incomes.
Right.
What made it affordable for people at the beginning of 2020 is the fact that the interest rates were so low. And now they were like, oh, thank God I can buy that $300,000 house.
Right.
Well, today's interest rates, the person making the same income cannot afford that house.
Right.
The biggest problem we have in the United States in every single market is the median priced income family of four cannot afford the median priced home in the area.
Right.
It is so lopsided, and
Right.
we're not going to get out of it if we don't have enough houses. We just do not have the supply.
And I've been watching, and I know a lot of homes here, they keep going up in price, even if it's the same product, because the price of land is getting more expensive. And so we have a lot of people that come to Georgia and they're like, well, I want a little bit of acreage. And it's like, well, I know somebody along the way told you that that was a thing here. And if you want to get an older home, like 88, 90, maybe you're going to get that. The builders don't build on large lots anymore because they can't afford to build on large lots. They have to get their money back. And now land is so expensive in order for them to have an affordable product to give to you, which is still really not an affordable product. We have no affordable products. You know, that's something that I think also people don't take into consideration what the builders spent in order to even build the product that they're building. And I know that you specialize a lot in, you've done a ton of knowledge and sharing on affordable housing and different types of that. Tell me a little bit about that.
So I love talking about affordable housing because it is possible. Right. We've been told a million times, like, oh, it's because of the legislation and, you know, it's the red tape. It's because of policies. There's so many different layers that causes the home affordability problem. And I don't blame builders for not wanting to build smaller homes, honestly. Like, why would they? They're not going to make the money to do it. And there's a ton of red tape on top of it. If they cut the red tape out, especially like in places in California, it's even worse.
Right.
And in starting with the land development aspect, because, you know, like a neighborhood's planned, in some areas, it can take 10 years from the time that they draw the blueprints with the plat map and the whole 9 yards to the first time they actually are even pouring the first slab. 10 years. It's not like that here in Louisiana, but it is in some states. If they cut that out, that would save a lot of time and money, right? That would cut down as much, like that would cut a lot of the price of the house down because they wouldn't be sitting on a piece of land that can't do anything with for 10 years, right?
But then, you know, our government might be upset because, oh, they, you know, didn't get their piece of the pie. They didn't get their cut, you know, of going in there and checking on things and doing everything that they do.
Well, they can do all that. So most of the time when it comes to development, it's always all these meetings that are required. Right. It's on the books. You have to come in there so the neighbors can voice their opinion about what's going on in there. Right. So you have to go to planning and zoning. You have to have a meeting here. You got to go here, and you have to have these plans approved. Then you got to have the area have a conference about those plans that have already been approved. Then you have to go into the roads. Like, it all can be done in one shot. It doesn't need to be stretched out the way it is. Each area is going to have its own municipality when it comes to this. And not only that, there's also land that's owned by every single county. They own pieces of land. And if you're looking for a space to put affordable housing, you already know that's your piece of dirt. Go ahead and sell it at market value to the developer so they can develop it for more affordable homes. Right. I also think that they should stop institutional investors from buying up as much affordable homes. That's what's causing a big problem because they're buying those 2-3 bedroom houses like that. And they should put a halt to that. Like, if you were an investor, we're going to put a constraint on you for, let's just say, a year, and then you can reevaluate what's going on in your area to see if you want to allow them to back in. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And it's funny, I had lunch with a client of mine last week he's been thinking about selling his house for like the last year, but he keeps going back and forth. And he feels like in some ways he missed the boat because he could have sold, you know, when the market was higher, but at the same time, then he would have been buying when it was higher, but we really haven't come down here in Atlanta at all. Right. And so, you know, he's still in that same boat, and now interest rates are even higher. So he just kind of keeps going back and forth with it, but he's an accountant. So he's really a numbers guy and he's looking at all of it. And we were talking about that exact thing because he watched my video last week, which was, we were kind of touching on, I know you talked about this in one of your lives, the thing that they're doing right now that Biden just put in place, President Biden put in place that, you know, if you have a higher credit score or you're putting more money down, this is only for specific loans, but that you would be paying
Some people are calling it a penalty fee. I'm not going to say it's a penalty fee, but it's definitely not exciting news for anybody when you work your rear end off your entire life to keep your credit going strong. And now they're saying, that's great for you. Here's a $40, thing that we're going to tack on. So I love your idea, and I'm 100% on board with that, of putting a halt on all of the big corporations that are buying all of the affordable housing, because how are your everyday people supposed to compete with big companies like that?
They can't. They got deeper pockets. I mean, it was proven with this last rush of homes, like they were getting outbid cash. I saw more cash in this height of the market than I ever seen in all of my years in real estate. Like, I was shocked how many young people are like, yeah, we're going to be buying cash. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? You're hiding under a mattress? Like, where the hell did all these people come in with cash?
I definitely didn't have that at that age.
Yeah, it blows my mind. But, the thing with Biden, we'll see how long this thing lasts. Like, they do all these, they always have these programs and policies, and then they're like, oh, that kind of was a dud. We're going to go ahead and change it back. They do all this. I think the best thing they could do to continue to incentivize people that have never purchased a home before is to reduce their mortgage by 1.5%. If you've never been on a mortgage before, you've never been on a title before, and you are buying your very first home, you get a 1.5% deduction in your interest rate. So that way, people that have never owned a home are still encouraged to buy a house. Kids my daughter's age are in their 20s, and they are in the know of, there's no way we can ever afford a home. Like, if the prices of homes continue to go up at 3%, which is a normal, healthy real estate market at this point, where if they're right where we are now, when will I ever be able to afford a house? Never,
And that's why so many people, I'm sure you as well have investors that they're buying homes for the purpose of, one day I'll give this to my child, and they can take it and live in it. They can sell it and take the money. But my kids, when they get a little bit older, I've got a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old. There's no way they'll be able to buy a house if we don't go ahead and get that for them now. We just had
I did it. I did it. I did. I bought each of the girls a house.
But I mean,
we rent it out now. We rent them out, but
that's genius, because you're also making money for yourself currently, and then you're building wealth for your children through real estate. Like, what better way?
I'm a crappy landlord, though, because honestly, my market rent here, I should be charging them almost $2,000 in rent, and I charge them $1,250.
So I would say you're a crappy landlord. You're actually a great landlord to them.
No, I'm stupid. I'm a stupid landlord. I'm a dummy.
Well, we just had a question from Kim Robertson. Mm-hmm. How do you slow down investors?
You can put a buying freeze. If you are buying a house through an LLC, S Corp, or any of that, can't buy it in that county. Nope. You have to be what do they call it? Owner occupant. Occupant. They do that with foreclosures, like howtohomestore.com.
Yep.
They will say to people, look, the people that are owner occupants get first chance to this house, right? And then they'll say, okay, that 14-day wait period is done. Now we're going to go ahead and allow it for institutional investors. If somebody was to come in and they were an owner occupant and an institutional investor was to come in at the same time, they'll work with the owner occupant first, even though the institutional investor had a higher bid, because they really want those homes to go to owner occupants.
And I feel like that is such a much smarter way than like this $40 situation that we have at hand. Why do you think they're not doing this? Why do you think that? I mean, I feel like that would really suck. Even just 14 days of being active on the market and giving buyers, like you said, owner occupant, a chance before opening it up to investors in kind of the open market, so to speak. Why do you think we're not doing this?
Well, because it would have to be a federal law. In all housing markets, as you know, they're all different. So you can't put a blanket statement saying that all real estate needs to be done this way. It just, it isn't smart. You would have to, each area would have to vote on that idea. You just can't, it would be stupid. Now you can't always affect the loans. Those are federal, like they're packed with federal money. So, they have a say in what goes on there.
Yes, they always do. It's always lovely. So I've had a lot of people recently, and I was going to share this article here.
My face looks like I can cook bacon with it. It is so greasy. I'm so sorry. I was like,
oh my goodness, no. So I've had people asking me recently, and it's funny because you talked about this already. Is it deja vu in the housing market? Are we seeing 2006 all over again?
No.
It says, does this sound disturbingly familiar? Skyrocketing home prices have very suddenly leveled off. Recession fears are swirling. But I feel like this is one of those things, and it's fear sells, right? So if they talk about this all the time and they talk about the sky is falling, I feel like Chicken Little, and the sky is falling. And so that's going to keep me listening. It's going to keep me watching the news. It's going to keep me looking at this kind of crap. But from what I'm seeing, it's very, very different from that. Our loans are different. They have a lot more behind them. So, I mean, what's your take on this?
Well, one thing that most people don't put in perspective is that more Americans have the most equity that they've ever had in their houses. Most Americans' equity position in their homes is so incredibly high that even if the market was to go down 20% in their area, they'd still have tens of thousands of dollars in equity. They didn't lose anything.
Right.
So if they bought at the beginning of 2019, over the last, whatever couple years, it increased so much, they didn't lose anything. So that's why I believe that, we're not heading for a crash. We don't have enough supply of homes. Whenever we were in the last housing crash, we had an abundance of houses. There was too many. There's too many. I have someone trying to creep into my, I'm on a live stream. We had just too many houses on the market, and that's what caused the problem in the first place. Not only that, there were so many people in really terrible loans, like really bad loans.
Yep.
And so those interest only loans came due. People were foreclosed on. Not only that, we had a jobs market that was tanking. So they lost their job. They were in a stupid loan, and there was ample supply of houses. All three of those things are not the case right now. The job numbers, whether you want to believe them or not, are still going up. And even the Fed's like, we're scratching our head to know why, because their plan was to, eradicate 1.5 million jobs, and that's still not happening yet.
Right.
We still haven't built enough houses since the last housing crash. There isn't an ample supply of houses. If there is vacant or stock of homes, it's because they're too large, and you didn't even investigate your avatar well enough. You didn't do your marketing research, because if they were the smaller homes, they would have sold just like that.
Right.
We're just and the people that were approved for loans are approved for loans at a lower interest rate. They're not going to sell anytime soon unless they have to. And at this point, if they had to, because they lost their job, their equity position is so incredibly high. They're not going to be doing short sales or foreclosures or that kind of thing, unless they decided not to pay at all. And if we're talking about the foreclosure rates, because I've been seeing the headlines recently, like foreclosure rates are super high. They're still not what they were pre-pandemic levels. Yes, they've gone up since the pandemic, but there's no other way they could have, because nothing was foreclosed on for nearly 2 years because of the moratoriums.
And I think people don't realize that there are always foreclosures. There's always foreclosures happening. I feel like people think that there's just, because you didn't hear about it for a little while, that there's just no, there's always foreclosures. Yes, there was the abundance of them after the 2008 situation, but there's always foreclosures going on.
Yeah, they had like record numbers there for, I think it was like 2009, 2010. That was when they had the biggest dump. But do you know who bought up most of those foreclosures? Institutional investors. They bought them in bulk, and they got them for a steal.
Yeah.
And they felt like they got stuck until they figured out, oh, well, this is how we're going to make money from them.
Right.
And then they realized what a cash cow it was. And they were like, every time foreclosures come on the market, a lot of times you never see them. Never see them, because what they'll do is they'll just buy them in bulk. They'll go to the bank and say, "Hey, Bank of America, you got all these ones in South Florida? We'll buy them all. We'll buy them all for this amount of money."
Yeah. And that's
But
why it's really tough when you have an investor that it's a small time investor and they are looking, they say, well, we want to look at foreclosures. Well, you're never going to see them, like you said, because sometimes they don't even come on the market, because
Yep.
they have their people that they'll even call and say, hey, we've got these coming up. Are you interested? Because all the bank wants is their money. They don't care about anything else. They want their money back. And it's ironic because I was actually working for a builder as the design studio manager back in 2005, 2006, 2007. And it's ironic for me now because that was the start of my career. I had just gotten licensed in 2005 and I was helping build all of these spec houses. I was doing all the interiors and we were just pumping them out as quickly as we possibly could. And it didn't matter if they were sold or not. And that was the fun part for me because I got to build my dream house over and over and over, but I never paid for it because it was spec houses. And then all of a sudden, I remember end of 2007, it was like, oh shit, this is not, something's changing. And then 2008, it was like the bomb dropped. And my builder.
It was like somebody pulled the plug, wasn't it? It was so weird.
Yeah.
It was like we had the same thing. It was like one day everything was selling like hot cakes. Like you could put the sign out and there were people lined up down the street.
Yep.
And then the next weekend it was like you started seeing all these signs and there were more and more signs and none of them saying sold. It felt like there was like the air was even thick at the time. It was so weird. It was so palpable. But this is not happening. And that's what everybody's waiting for. They're waiting for that moment and it's not happening.
It is. And I like your point, like you said, because people at that time, I feel like a lot of people were taking out second mortgages against the house or, doing home renovations with money against the house. And they didn't have a lot of equity. And so when they were borrowing against it, they were, capping out that loan again. And we're not seeing that happen now. And a lot of people brought up the fact of, oh, well, we're seeing, the 5-1 arm, the 2-1 arm. That's what got us there. But I don't feel like people are doing their research enough to see, yes, we have some of those programs. However, it's totally different. Like we did learn a little bit from the last, 2008, where
you got to qualify for that crap.
Exactly.
Those people that got them the last time. I mean, you could walk in with a telephone bill and a pay stub from, and then they had stated income. You could say, well, I have the pay stub for being a bus driver, but I also make some extra money raising lizards,
Right.
and I'm selling them on eBay,
Right.
and all you had to do is say it, just state how much you made, and you could buy whatever you wanted.
Right.
And then other people are using their houses as ATM machines. They're like, I've always wanted to take a vacation to Europe. I have so much equity. I might as well tap into it.
Yes.
And then they get a HELOC. And then like you have to pay that back, by the way,
Right.
But they didn't know. Nobody knew. There was so much predatory lending done at that time.
Yes.
And they kept telling people it's just going to continue to go up. It's just going to continue to go up.
Yeah.
But there were so many factors that we are not facing today. It's just not a thing.
So Anthony joined us. Anthony is one of my favorites, just so you know. He is on every week, and he's actually the gentleman I was telling you I went to lunch a couple of weeks ago. So Anthony, good evening all. Do you think the current bank crisis and debt ceiling scenario will tighten credit standards and make it more difficult to get approved for a home loan?
Yes. I do. Yeah, I was just talking about this today with one of my good friends who's a lender. And so if that's the case, that means less people are going to be approved for a loan. I think the real estate market that's going to see the biggest problem, and I've been saying this for the last 3 years, is the commercial real estate problem, the commercial real estate sector. And I think they're going to have the hardest time getting those loans because they're huge jumbo loans.
Right.
I don't think we're going to see it so much in the residential unless you're getting a jumbo loan, the double.
Right.
What is it? Over 700,000, something like that, 600,000.
Upping it.
Yeah. So those kinds of loans are going to have the biggest issue. But anything under that, I don't think they're going to tighten those. They've been doing tighter credit checks anyways.
Yeah.
Which is
Needed.
fine. But it does get annoying. It really does. When they ask for a bank statement, you're like, I just gave you one last week. Well, we need a new one because you got paid,
Right.
automatically paid again. And then, they're always then they pull it the day of closing too. And you're like, damn.
I try to tell people, they're like, well, we're only a week from closing. We're going to go ahead and go buy that washer and dryer. I'm like, no, you're not. Because you're going to totally screw yourself. And then day of closing, they're going to ask for your final everything. And then you're going to totally screw up the loan to value. And now you've got no house. So then you don't need that washer and dryer.
They did that. I didn't know. I didn't think, honestly, my credit score was spot on. Right. And we have just moved from Florida to Louisiana, and we were about to close. And then the week before, and I was like, I needed a refrigerator. And I have little kids. I can't I couldn't wait.
Right.
And then, so it was okay. It turned out fine. The thing is, the house that we were buying was cheaper than the house that we sold in Florida. So they were like, yeah, you're right.
It worked out. It worked out. But people do, they don't think about, that they're going to ask you for those final docs. And if you go out and you need that refrigerator, that washer and dryer, they're like, well, it's for the house. I did go buy a Ferrari. And I'm like, that's great. But you got to do that after you close. Can't do it before.
Don't do what Kristina did, because it really did make everybody sweat for a minute.
Yes.
I just didn't think, honest to God, I just didn't even think it was a big deal. Yeah. I mean, because my husband was the one that was on the top of the loan. I was just on the title.
Right.
But because I was just pulling it under my credit, not his. But
right.
Apparently that was.
Well, it still pulls from his account. So they're going to see that and say, where did all the money go?
Yeah. Well, I pulled a line of credit. That was how stupid I was. Yeah. Because I got a Best Buy card. And I'm like, but I'm not buying the house. He is. I'm just going on title. I didn't think it was a big deal. I didn't know why they made a big deal out of it, but apparently it was a big deal. They still closed it, but I got a little hairy eyeball with that. Right? They wouldn't allow that crap today, so don't do what I did.
Well, I know, over the last couple of months, obviously we, saw the bank collapse, and then there's been talks of other ones collapsing and what that's going to look like, and we're constantly pumping out trillions of dollars here. And so, what do you think is gonna be down the pipe? And I think it's so interesting. People ask me this question all the time, and that's why I'm so excited to ask it to somebody else, because I feel like God knows, I wish I had a crystal ball and I could just tell everybody exactly what I see coming, but unfortunately I can't. And so, what do you foresee this year looking like in terms of that? Because I can say that me personally, I did not see that coming. When that bank went under, I didn't see that coming.
I'm just going to relate that to the housing market. Unless the jobs market tanks, we're not going to see home prices decline in a rate that people are wanting it to. And we have too many people that have a lot of money, that have cheap loans, that are not incentivized to sell. Home builders are not incentivized to build. Right. So we're going to be on price constraints for quite some time unless something significant happens with the jobs market, because if people don't have a job, they can't pay for it.
Right.
If we continue down the track of inflation the way it is, of course, that's going to cause a tighter squeeze, which, Jerome Powell wants it to be uncomfortable. He even said that. I know it's going to be uncomfortable for some people, but we have to get through this. Right. I just spent $8 on a bag of pita chips from Stacy's. $8. I was like, what in the world? This is ridiculous. So my crystal ball is, time will tell. I can't pull it out unless the jobs market tanks and people start losing their jobs like crazy. We're not going to see home prices fall the way people are hoping.
Yeah, I agree. I've actually started gardening. I feel like I can't afford groceries anymore. So I figure, hell, I might as well grow them in the backyard.
Trader Joe's, man. You do got a Trader Joe's around there?
We do. But like you said, I'm spending, $300 when I'm walking out the door each time. I've got 2 kids that, eating me out of house and home. And so when you go to the grocery store now, it's like $300 each time you go. Like you said, $8 for a bag of chips.
That's why I started going to Trader Joe's. Thank God, because that same bag of chips at Trader Joe's was $2.99.
Really?
Yeah, get the Trader Joe's brand, or if you have Aldi there too.
We do have Aldi, and is it Lidl? I'm not sure how you say it, but we have one of those that I have not really shopped. I'm one of those, I hate to say it, but I guess I'm bougie when I'm shopping. Like I'm maybe bougie is not the right. I'm used to what I'm used to. And so if I go into a new store and I don't know where stuff is, I get frustrated.
Yeah, I get that. But I'm always like, at the end of the day, I like look at the bag of groceries I got for $150. You know, like we're gonna be eating like kings for the rest of the week. I love a good deal. Absolutely. I love a good deal.
No, I get that.
Yeah, and I think that if people, this just reminds me of what I had to do the last time. I just started out as a real estate agent during the last housing crash. Same as you. And that's when I learned how to shop the sales circulars.
Yep.
And buy in bulk. And I had gotten a food saver. To this day, I still have. I got a food saver. Keeping up with that.
Oh yeah.
I have you have to plan ahead with your meals. You're gonna have food ridiculous. I think the worst part about it, and this is where one of those times I do want the government to step in. Because all of these companies they know that inflation is in our brains. So they're artificially inflating their prices because they are having record profits. I mean, they are fat catting it all over the place on their yachts and everything, going, we got another bonus of a $10 million for our CEOs.
Yeah.
It makes absolutely no sense. Yeah. They should put a nip in that bud, because there's no reason that they should be making record profits when people are truly hungry. They're suffering. Yeah. And they know what they're doing. The whole thing with the eggs was ridiculous. Oh my God. That was so fabricated.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you 100%. I want to go back to the affordable housing, and, because I've watched some of the things on your videos on your channel, and you talk a lot about tiny homes, and you've got all sorts of different videos, and I find them so fascinating because I feel like there's definitely a space for that. It's kind of funny because I was talking to my husband about the fact of, I grew up in my grandparents' house in Chamblee, Georgia, which is a little bit closer into the city. It was a 60s home. So it was tight. There were 3 bedrooms, and they were all what we consider like secondary bedroom sizes. Even the owner suite was kind of a smaller, because houses in the 50s, 60s, 70s were usually 2,000 square feet and under. Mm-hmm. Somewhere along the way, we thought, well, we need 6,000 square feet and a basement. And then they matched the furniture to it. Now my feet don't touch the floor. But so my thing is, with the homes, it's so frustrating here in Georgia because so many spaces, so many cities don't have the zoning to allow for that type of housing. And so I know you work all over the United States. Where have you seen more places adopting this, and what do you find people are able to do to get cities to adopt this, or have we not really seen that happen?
We haven't seen it happen. I mean, like, the thing is, the culture changed, and cities, matter of fact, it's done the opposite. So like some areas won't even allow for a house to be built that's under 2,200 square feet.
Right.
Now I will say, I'm going to take that back. Maine, Vermont, and Colorado have changed some of their rules when it comes to that. Okay. Maine has done allowed for tiny homes to be built in rural areas now. The regulations on building has changed. I just want to warn anybody that's thinking about doing a tiny home. They're mostly not built to any regulation building standards. I would try to find a builder to build you a small home instead of trying to build a tiny home. I know they're trendy and they're super cute and they look like little cottages in the woods, but they're not built to any kind of building code. And if you're planning on putting them on a slab, you're going to have to meet building code. And it might be way more expensive in the long run trying to bring up that tiny home up to code itself. So I would just find a local builder in your area if you have an area that does allow for, 1,000 square feet, and have them put it together. There's also a guy named, he has a channel here on YouTube, the Armchair Builder. Okay. He has plans that you can buy, and then you could give that to your county or state and then have a contractor build that house for you, which would save you a ton of money, money.
Yeah. The only place that I have found, and it's really frustrating because here in Georgia, so I'm in Suwanee, which is kind of like the North Metro area. And then if you drive about an hour north, there's a place called Lake Burton. It's absolutely stunning. And that is literally the only place that I have seen. They have a tiny home community. And it's absolutely adorable. And I love the fact that they've built, and then they build the porches on. I mean, it's a really cute community. And I feel like that would be another way of, having more affordable housing options, but the zoning and regulations here are just so strict. And I feel like nobody is budging on that.
Right. But I think there's always like the devil's in the details with that kind of stuff, because you can have urban sprawl where there's these houses that are kind of all over the place. They're not cohesive to the rest of the community. Yeah. So you have to be careful on that. I'm a proponent for tiny homes on slabs, not the ones on wheels, because all they're doing is renting land at that point. All it is a glorified RV park. Yeah. And that's not going to help an area, right?
That's funny you say that, because that's what it kind of reminded me of.
Right.
It looked very similar, but nicer.
Yeah, but nicer for a while.
Yeah.
For a while. Let's see what it looks like in 10 years.
They
always look nice at the beginning.
Absolutely.
But I suggest what they do is make homes like 1,200 square feet and under. They'll sell like hotcakes.
Right.
Put them on zero lot lines. And, like they would save so much room. I mean, granted, they're close together, but at least it's your own home, and you'll have a little strip of glass in the front yard and a strip of grass in the backyard. You can mow it with a weed eater, and then it would be like a 1-car lot type thing.
Yeah. So Matt said a home in Glen at Shacrag was sold last week without even posting photos. A new community in Sugar Hill by Providence Group pulled back lots because they're selling so fast. It's really frustrating. So we've been seeing a lot of that, where homes are, I hate to say this, but this is why it's so important. And I know you know this, Kristina. It's so important for us as realtors to have these relationships with other realtors, because if I know that you work a predominant area and I call you and say, hey, do you have anything coming up? I've got a client looking for this. And it just so happens you have a seller that's thinking about selling, and we're able to kind of work that out.
But how many of those, the thing is how many posts do you get or calls you get that say, I'm looking for a unicorn? Right. Because everybody's looking for something in a price range that they, in their brain, is 2019.
Right.
And they're hearing all these headlines and they still think, well, I can get a deal.
Yeah.
But their expectations are crushed when they find out it doesn't exist.
People here, I feel like, I think they were like that at the very beginning of the year because things were shifting so hard. But then the last couple of months, I think people have had to have a little coming to Jesus meeting of like, look, that's not happening. Like we're still in multiple offers. No, it's not 20 offers like it was before, but you're competing against 5 to 10. And we're not bidding $100,000 over list, but it's a solid 40. So, your dream of the market declining, like, CNN told you it would, I'm sorry, that's not happening. So I feel like people here
it's mostly YouTubers, man. That's who it mostly is. If you're going to be honest, every week they make out another video. Oh, Oklahoma is crashing. Boise's crashed 40%. They make up their own charts. Yeah. They lie like dogs. And you know why? Do you know why they do it?
The views,
It's not the views. Do you know how much those channels are making on average a month?
No.
$50,000 to $60,000 on the low end.
But I don't understand
the low end in AdSense.
Because they're just straight up lying to people.
Doesn't matter. It sells. People want to hear it. They want someone to tell them this is going to happen because they're so incredibly frustrated. So it makes us that are telling them the truth they feel like you're so stupid. We have the inside secret. We know because we listen to such and such channel, and that's who's telling the real truth. You're hiding it from us because you're a real estate agent and all you want to do is sell houses.
Right.
And they can get away with it because they're not licensed in anything. They're not financial planners. They do not have their real estate license. They do not have their license to be a lender. So they can spout out whatever nonsense they want and sound like an expert. They even sell their charts, which has terrible data they make up.
That's so frustrating because you're out here trying to educate people and tell them what's really going on so that they can make educated decisions. And then you have people that are telling complete lies and totally just ruining the truth. So I agree. It is very frustrating. Anthony, I saw this video about a few neighborhoods in Texas with 3D printers. Is this something that's fairly new? And do you think this could be another tool to help with home affordability?
I have this answer. Okay, so that is by Icon, and it is in a tiny home village that they built a few of these spec homes.
Okay.
The thing about 3D printing is you have to make the whole entire neighborhood a 3D printed house. Like if you wanted to do this in an individual lot, it would be a dumb idea. Okay, because it costs, that machine itself is over 3 tons. So they have to ship it to your area to have it built.
Right.
Then you have to have special engineers that are watching the pour, because if that machine moves at any time, just think about if the piece of paper in your printer goes off,
right,
you know, your whole print is off like this. And that's what happens to your house. So you have to have those special engineers, which cost you extra. The material for tiny homes has never, I mean, for those 3D printed homes has not been tested, right? Everybody has their own secret mixture of whatever this concrete pasty crap is.
Yeah.
So you're just going on blind faith of that you're not going to die from this stuff, you know? You know, I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I mean, like I'm being frank. And then the third thing, another thing that people need to put in, this is not a really feasible idea, is all of your wiring is put through a concrete wall, right? And if there anything happens with that wiring and you have to get to something, you have to cut a hole in this concrete that's laid like tubes of toothpaste, and then you're going to have to repair it. And that's not going to look like any of the other walls in your house.
Right.
None. 3D printing is a very exciting idea. Yeah. I don't think it's there yet. It's not practical yet. The material costs are very, very high. They have a lot of, they've been talking about it since 2017, and yet here we are. We're still not seeing like 3D printed houses going everywhere.
Right.
If it was affordable, they would be making them because they would sell. It's not as affordable as they are claiming it to be. That's why they keep doing them in these little tiny little areas and this little tiny, supposedly there's going to be one in California soon enough. And it's supposedly affordable, but it's the same price as all the other houses in the area. Right. So it's not any cheaper. Right. So they're selling it on the fact that it's more environmentally friendly because it's made of concrete and everything. I don't think it's ready yet. I think it's a great idea. I don't think it's ready yet. If you're looking for something to be done quickly, effectively, safely, and have energy efficiency, just go modular. Get a modular built home.
Yeah. Okay. Matt, our visit from New Jersey to Atlanta did not lead to a decent home purchase. So now we are heading to Holly Springs or Charlotte in North Carolina.
You're going to be paying out the wazoo in Charlotte.
Yeah. Charlotte's beautiful, but man, it's expensive.
Yeah.
It has gone through the absolute roof to the list of cities we should look for. I mean, there's a lot of cities that, I mean, South Carolina has some beautiful areas. Greenville is beautiful. I know a lot of people that look in the North Metro area of Georgia also end up looking in some of the suburbs of South Carolina, just because we're different, but we are very, very similar. You know, you've got those southern states that are very similar. So, I mean,
I have a question.
Yes.
So 1,000 years ago, I graduated high school from Roswell, Georgia, and I went to school. I was the mascot, by the way. I dressed in the fuzzy bee costume.
Love it.
But I went to school, and I actually stayed in a house in Rabun County. Yeah. That place was as affordable as you could get. I mean, you could buy. Is it still like that up there?
No.
Really?
So it's funny because my husband and family and I, we just got back from Rabin because so we live, like I said,
Did you
on
go to
the north
Gorge?
side of the city. Do what?
Did you go to the Gorge where you go
Yes.
down there?
So
Okay.
we only live about 45 minutes to an hour from there. And it's one of our favorite places because I don't want to say I'm a city girl, but I'm definitely an urban suburban girl. And
Mhm.
my husband absolutely loves to be left in the middle of nowhere, which scares the hell out of me. So
Mhm.
the perfect marriage of us is Rabin because Rabin is right outside of Lake Burton, which is a very nice, very affluent lake and all of the lake properties. So the little city of Rabin built up. It's got some fantastic restaurants, some great shopping.
It didn't have anything there. This was
So,
1993. Nothing. It had
yeah.
a buy low grocery store.
Oh my
And the
gosh.
only thing to do there for people that were our age was to get in a car and you drove around the downtown and all you do was go in a circle. I'm not joking. Like that was it. There was one gas station,
Oh man.
one bank.
Yep.
It was
No,
horrible.
it has
Horrible. The
grown
people were
so
horrible.
much. No, it's grown so much. And you would be shocked because that's one of the North Georgia areas that has actually grown more than any of them. It's got a lot of housing. But the great thing is some of those there's cities, they do have more land options still. And so it is a little bit more affordable than say, the urban suburban area of like Swanee, Alpharetta, Roswell, because those areas we have no land left. Everything has already been developed. There's nothing else. If it's not already here, it's not coming because there's nothing left. Where Rabin and all of the areas around it do still have land options available.
My parents, I just called them the other day because I was curious. I'm like, hey mom, dad, guess how much your house is now worth that you sold in Atlanta? My dad was like, how much? Because they sold it for $189,000.
In Roswell?
Yeah, this was years ago. This was
Right.
this was in 1992. 1992, they sold
Oh
it.
my gosh.
And I said, it's $820,000. That's how much. He's like, damn, I should have never left. He's like, did they keep the pool? I'm like, Dad, they kept the pool.
Yep. Yep.
But that's how much it's gone up since 1992.
That is amazing. So what made y'all leave Georgia?
My dad retired and he wanted to, what do they do? My dad was 55 when he retired.
Yeah.
And he just went to Florida, and then he bought the weird thing is he bought a house in Florida for like $200,000 in Florida, right? That
Right.
same house now is $1.1 million.
I'm gonna say there is no house in Florida for 200,000 at this point.
Absolutely not. That's in Lake County, but it was a sleepy little town too, right? And then my parents moved to another little sleepy town. They sold that, and then they moved here. This is if you ever want to build a place that's cheap, it's is Louisiana. It's in comparison, you can get a house here, $300,000 for like a 2,000 square foot house.
Wow. That's amazing. And you love your area.
Oh yeah, I do. It has I'll say, I'm gonna be honest, it floods. Not my specific area, but you have to be careful where you buy.
Right.
That's why it's always important to work with a real estate agent that knows the area, because there are some areas here that flood like a son of a gun.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well,
People don't care here though. The people that live around here, they're like, yeah, it floods. We know what to do.
Like they're used to it.
They're totally used to it.
Yeah. It's like people here when they come here and they start to see snow, we freak out. We don't know how to handle snow. We don't get snow regularly. And if we do get snow, it's going to ice over, which is black ice. So I don't know why, but we always have this thing of you have to go get your milk and bread. That's going to solve all of the snow problems if you have your milk and bread, nothing else.
Here it's a beer and stuff for gumbo. So
I would prefer beer for sure, because then I wouldn't care as much.
Right. So it's beer, and then you got to get green peppers, onions, celery, chicken, and then you're gonna make a big pot of gumbo, and that's it.
I'm much more for that than the milk and bread. I don't know. Maybe this is like an olden thing where people did the dip the bread in the milk, but that just sounds.
Well, I think what it is you have to cook everything. Like the electricity goes out, you're going to have to start cooking all the stuff that's in the refrigerator. So what is the best thing to do with all that meat and stuff? You make sandwiches.
Oh my
gosh.
So
I think that's where it comes from. Just throw it on 2 pieces of bread and call it a day.
Yeah. I'm going to throw out the milk though and adapt your beer, because that sounds like a much better.
Oh, I have a better plan. This is the smartest thing I ever did. When I bought this house, I was like, before you even build it, I want a whole house generator. And I put a whole house generator in here, around here. And we've had so many hurricanes and stuff, because like a lot of times if the hurricane hits down in New Orleans, our electricity is going to be out, and it's going to be out for days, sometimes weeks.
Right.
And the first year I moved here, we had electricity out for 14 days, and I had 2 small children. And I said that will never happen again. So I got a whole house generator. I love it. I mean, we've lost power here for like a day or two, and I'm like, right. I'm sitting here like everything's running, and the air conditioning's running, and I'm watching people, and I'm like, I feel guilty sometimes at night though, because my house is lit up like a Christmas tree while the rest of the town is dark.
They had the option to do what you did, and they chose differently.
Yeah, I know. But that, that's one of those other things that people need to consider, is that our environment, whether you believe it or not, it's changing.
Yes.
You're seeing more wildfires. You're seeing 100-year floods that are happening every 10 years.
Right.
Like, you have to put that into perspective when you're looking for a house. Has that house ever flooded before? When was the last time it flooded? If it flooded once, it will flood again. Just know that. Yeah. So, put that into perspective for the future. If you plan on staying in a house for a period of time, know your area, and never, ever, ever, ever buy a house without flood insurance. It's too cheap. It's like $500 a year. Just go ahead and get it, whether you're in a flood zone or not.
Right.
If you're in a low risk, it's so incredibly cheap. And it's like, I don't know, I would get flood insurance. If you have a house, get a flood insurance. And make sure your policies are up to date.
Tornadoes, that's something that we sporadically have had here for years. But, I think when I was younger, I remember 2 in my entire, life. And then it seems like we've had a lot more of those happen the last couple of years. Thankfully, they're not a lot in the metro Atlanta suburban area.
When I lived in Roswell, I saw a tornado hit my house.
Wow.
I was on the school bus. So right there in Atlanta. Yeah.
Not scary at all.
No. And then I was in the house here in Louisiana, and a tornado hit us.
Oh no.
It's just, that's the nature of the beast though. There is no state that's like perfection, idyllic.
Exactly.
You're either going to get wildfires, earthquakes, volcano ash. There's always something.
Yes. It's funny because I was talking to I think you know her, Monica Church, and I was saying that we have tornadoes, and she's like, well, we have earthquakes, and like we always say that we're going to get tsunamis, and I was like, okay, tsunamis take the cake for me. I don't think I can handle that.
No.
So
I've watched enough movies about that. I don't want to do that.
It's so scary. I can't handle the flood of water, like having absolutely no possible way of getting out. That's just too much for me.
Yeah. Well, the 2016 flooding in Louisiana, South Louisiana, was record ridiculous. I mean, it was just everywhere, places that never ever flooded. Wow. We were like they were pulling people out on boats and everything. But I can tell you one thing, and this is true. If you ever hear something called the Cajun Navy, it's just a group of guys that have fishing boats.
Wow.
Like that's how it always started, because they know how to do it. They know these areas like the back of their hand, and they don't mess around. They're not like paid guys or anything like that. They just get with their fishing boats, and they go around and they pick people up and make sure people are safe. They're amazing. And they volunteer. They volunteered in Houston. They volunteer all over the place to help with recovery efforts.
That's amazing. That's it. And they're not scared of it. They know the areas, and they know exactly what to expect
and what to do and how to get people off in a boat safely. Because there's a way to put somebody in a boat, and people are scared, so they know how to handle all of that.
Wow. That's amazing.
I know. They're great.
Well, I really sincerely appreciate you coming on with us today and chatting about everything. I know that people have so many questions, and it's all over the place, and you're hearing, people talk out of both sides of their mouth, and, government saying one thing and then news is saying something else. So I really appreciate you coming on and just kind of having conversations with us. I told everybody ahead of time, I was like, my favorite thing about her is she's just no BS. There's no sugarcoat. It is what it is. And that's why I love her. So I'm so happy that you came on today and just kind of shared your thoughts with us.
Well, thank you. I love talking. It's one of my favorite things to do. If you ever want to do it again, we can do it again. The only thing I have this thing like this is my second meeting today in a row. And so when I have a little bit of ADHD and I should probably be medicated, but I don't. And so as the time goes, I can't help myself. I start getting really rocky. So if I did that and I annoyed you, I'm so sorry. I can't help myself because I'm about to crawl out of my skin.
You're absolutely fine. I appreciate it so much. And everybody, we will see you guys next Thursday at 6 o'clock.
Bye.